All right, I've got 422, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get started. I don't have a big formal presentation here. It's really more just a matter of giving everybody a chance to connect and kind of ask questions. The arena contest is a big change this year, so that's good. I think it's going to make it interesting, although it scares me a little bit because we had everything else figured out before. So I felt comfortable with what we were doing. And now I'm a little bit apprehensive about what we're doing because I'm not totally sure that I'm going to know exactly what's going on, but I figure we'll all figure it out together. Are you guys able to now see my screen? It says the build widgets on there, the TCA screen. Okay, I'm seeing a couple thumbs up. Thank you. If you have a question or start talking, you can always just come off mute too and yell at me or just drop something in the chat. But I did put a few of the links in the chat. So, when you go to TCEA, I just want to make sure everybody understands where they can find the information. So under Learn and then Robotics and About Robotics, this gives you the good general overview of what's happening with that. If you scroll down the page though and say go to contests, then you can get into the description and the, I guess just the general information. This link here is supposed to take us to all of the area events. I did update this today, but I noticed it wasn't updated yet. Our contest, I gave the wrong date out when I sent it out, so I've tried to update a few things. But our contest, I said, was going to be on the 13th, which is that Thursday. But Christy Allen said she could not secure enough space in the service center to do that. So we are going to have to do it on Friday, January 7th, which is that first Friday we're back. And I updated the things in the community to show that. And then, of course, this will update itself here in a little bit, too, at some point. I emailed Katie Treat at the TCA office and just told her that I'd cleaned up this, my entry for this. So hopefully she can get that stuff copied and pasted over into this document at some point in the near future. But again, that link is just off of the main site. And it just says that here's a link to the different area contests. So everything you need should be here, but by all means, anybody that has a question, just email me. I'm going to go ahead and drop my email address in here again. I'm assuming the ones here know it, but just jbimmerly@ssisd.net. And again, you can, if you go to this link here on the page that says contests, and you click here, my email address, my SSISD email address is what's on that form. So feel free to communicate. Kelly, I know, sent me somebody the other day and said, hey, this person came to visit with me a little bit about starting up robotics. And so she passed on that email address. If you guys know of somebody else in your district that you want on the coaches list, then by all means, just send those to me and I'll just keep adding to that list. And every time I send something out, all that information will be there. So if you're not getting emails from me, then you need to go ahead and make sure you're on my email list. But I'll also update the community. And so I want to kind of show the community real quick in a second, but I'm going to kind of scroll down this page. So I'm still on the contest page. I know I'm going kind of all over the place, so just bear with me. Amanda, I see your address there. I'll get you added to my list too. I'll get both of those in there. But as you scroll down the page here, you can go to the arena contests and the inventions contest. So there's two different kinds of contests that you can enter. Inventions is kind of what I call more like the science fair type thing, where you get the opportunity to look at the wide open problem set, so to speak, and then your kids have to do a presentation. They have a display, then they build the robot out as much as they can based on whatever it is that their invention is going to be. And then they get to go ahead and have that face-to-face with the judges where they're presenting why their invention is such a good idea. And then you have the arena contest. And the arena contest is where there's quite a bit of change. They're trying to bring in some of the elements of the VEX and BEST and other competitions and kind of meld that with what we have here with TCEA. The nice thing is you don't have to have any specific robot. You can use your ones from VEX now. You can use any of the Lego ones that you would have, as long as they're the Spike or the EV3. I think there's still one other outdated model that they have, but that opens you up to a wider variety of stuff. So like in our district, I know Kelly, she's started to venture into some of those other contests. So she's not just dealing with the Lego pieces. So, now she could actually take advantage of some of those other robots she has. By design, TCA, we've always wanted this contest to be a good entry level. And I just realized I got 2 people sitting in the waiting room now, darn it. I hate doing that to people. So give me just 1 second to see how long Jody and them have been waiting. I'm going to leave it up to one of you guys to every once in a while remind me to look for the waiting room space. All right, Jody, I'm seeing that you're getting connected now. I apologize. I just started a few minutes ago and then I forgot to look back at the waiting room. So hopefully you're able to hear me now and working on that. And I see that Matt is also now logged into that. Now, Matt, I'm going to bring this up to you. I know when I send out stuff through the community, it comes in and a lot of you guys in district, you think, oh, well, John's sending me this email from, saying I need to do this. This meeting is really about the TCA robotics event. And so that's not going to really touch the high school end of this. You can do high school, but it's not what you've been doing with that. So I just want to make sure you know that you may not necessarily need to be in this meeting, but if you want to join the TCA stuff, by all means, we'd love to have you. It's just a matter of this is a little bit different. So don't feel obligated to stay here, I guess, that's what my point is for you. So anyway, that's quick thoughts there on a side note. Sorry for the rest of you. I just wanted to make sure I updated a couple that I saw come in. So back to, by design, we want this to be an affordable entry-level contest, but, now it's going to be an entry-level affordability because you don't have to use the more expensive pieces sometimes, but now you're going to have some more flexibility to use other things. And that's going to, I think, help make it a little bit potentially more affordable for people as well, because you may already have some of the other robots and now you can keep moving with those. So the other thing we have here is the arena contest, like I said. And so that's really what the conversation probably needs to be about, because that's where the questions usually come. So I'm going to click there real quick. And inside of this, if you scroll down the page, you've got your arena manual right here. And that's going to get into all the different details of what you need. And then you do use the boards that we have that we've been using for years through TCEA. The only place you can get that mat is through TCEA, because Lego stopped making it a while back, but we asked them to keep doing it for us because we knew we had a lot of people that had already invested in them. So you've got that, and then you've got all kinds of other stuff. If you want to get into having the logo around your room and try to get kids excited about what they're going to in January, then by all means look into some of the other info that's here. Your score sheets are going to be really important because this is what we'll be using as we go through it. But then you also have these videos that explain the rules and everything else. So make sure that you've checked that out. Make sure that you've shown those to your kids because, all of this information, we don't want it to be a surprise when they get to the contest. I've always done a little rules interpretation for Area 8 video, and I'll do the same thing this year so that you guys can look at that, and you'll be able to determine at that point whether or not maybe you've got any last minute changes that you want to make based on how I'm interpreting the rules and what I'm telling the judges, because once we get to that point, that's what's law, so to speak. Remember, for those of you that are new, you're not going to be able to talk to your students during the contest. So that's another thing that's a little bit different. You want to make sure that you're equipping them to be able to handle the problem set on their own and handle adjustments on their own. That's what we want this to be. So I'm going to stop talking for a second, and I'm going to ask for y'all's thoughts on this new challenge for the arena. I'll just say, come off mute if you want to, and we'll kind of, if somebody's talking over each other, I'll just pick one of you and tell you to talk. But what are our initial thoughts on that problem set? And I'm assuming that you've all seen the problem set at this point. So thoughts, questions, comments, concerns before I dive into it a little bit more. None?
I'm just still trying to think how we're going to use what we're going to use as remote controls for the EV3s that we already have.
Okay. Amanda, you guys have any initial reactions to it?
We didn't realize the contest was in January. So we're a little caught off guard by that. But are we super far behind if we haven't started yet, or?
Well, I can tell you at our elementary campus, we are trying to get our first meeting with our coaches. I'm hoping to do that in the next couple of days. I need to see if Kelly's able to come over and kind of talk to us too. But so we haven't done anything. We haven't even told the kids that we're doing it yet. And so our fifth graders are going to be really, really green on this, and they're going to do it one day a week after school. So you won't ever be too far behind.
Okay, good. You're at Sulphur Springs. Is that what
Yes.
the SS is? Okay. We're not far from you. We're in Paris. So,
Okay. And Kelly,
And I don't generally talk, even introduce the robot or the basics of movement until beginning of October.
okay, good. Because we've been doing PBLs and just teamwork stuff. So we haven't gotten into the robot just yet. And October was kind of our plan. So we're right on track then, I guess. So can the teams only be 4 as the max?
yes. So
Okay.
each team can have 4 at max and can have as few as 2. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those specifics in a minute in that game manual. I'm not going to go through everything in the game manual, but I'll go through some of the kind of the major talking points, I guess. Keith, you have anything to add at this point, or are you kind of good with it? Okay. Anybody else? Jody, I noticed you got in and saw that you, Amanda, she was wondering in the chat which Paris school you're at.
We're at Chisholm Middle School.
Okay, well, I'm right down the road at Paris High School, and
Oh, great.
Well, good. Maybe
years
you can
ago.
have dinner with us and teach us some things.
Yes, you're welcome to. Matter of fact, I've got a team working in the background right now. That's why my camera's off. But you're welcome to bring them over here after school one day, and we'll help them.
Awesome. Thank you for
We
that.
might need to bring us one day after school first.
Yeah, just me and just the sponsors one day, maybe.
Well, and I don't even think we're doing arena this year, though. I think we're going to stick to invention.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and to me, that's the best part about this. You know, as you guys were talking, Matt, who's our high school robotics teacher, he was actually saying, hey, if you need some help with this, you know, let me know with our elementary group. But that's the thing. I know Kelly, Jill Hensley from New Boston, several people have, you know, every time a new group comes in, there's always somebody willing to meet with them. You know, if they do a practice competition beforehand, they'll invite people to that. So, you know, it's a great community. I think we're going to get, you know, a lot of opportunity to help anybody that needs it. In fact, that you guys are so close is awesome because you can get into doing what you need. I will tell you that I don't know how to code a robot. I know the contest and I work with our elementary group as much as I can after school. And that's really just being an adult body for kind of crowd control. I do that intentionally because I run the contest, I don't want any favoritism. And obviously you can take that or leave it, I guess, on whether or not I really do that. But, you know, Kelly knows so much more about it that she's a much better resource for our district anyway than I would be. But I really try to stay hands off, but I love running the contest just because I think it's great. But if you need help finding somebody to help you, just reach out to me and I will help you find somebody, even if it's somebody that's not in our region. Just because of where you are, maybe you're closer to 7 or something like that. We can find you help. So don't ever get intimidated by that. That's, I guess, really as much as anything now for anybody that might watch the recording later. All right, so I'm going to keep going. Lucy, I saw that you're saying if anybody wants to invite it to a practice competition. Lucy, tell us where you are, either in the chat or if you want to come off mute real quick, you can do that as well. Oh, she said Clarksville earlier. I saw that. Sorry. Okay. So let me go into the game manual here just a little bit and kind of talk about some of the major focal points. So obviously different challenge. You're going to have only 2 kids able to come to the mat at a time. Okay. Your other 2 for the team, if you're going to go with 4-person teams, are going to be the scouts and the networking people, and they're going to be watching, trying to work on strategy. But at any given time, only 2 people will be able to come up to the table. And that's your driver and then your, whatever they call it, the technician. Okay. With that though, there's going to be 2 sets or 2 different teams going at the same time. So at some point, as we get closer to the contest, probably in December, I'm going to reach out to all the ones that have signed up for the contest. And I'm going to probably ask them, and this is something you guys as coaches will decide whether or not we do it, because I'm always going to give you guys a vote in all of this. But I know for like our elementary kids, they might actually do more harm than good, so to speak, when they're working with another team. You know, if all their robot knows how to do is a couple things and they're not going to be very productive, I kind of hate for them to mess up a competitive team. And so in our case, and it may be anybody's cases, in our case, we may be highly competitive by then. I don't know. But what I'm thinking is I'm probably going to ask for a competitive and a recreational group. They're going to all have to compete in the same times. But what I may do if they're a recreational group is saying, look, we're going to pair you up with other recreational ones. And that's because you're telling us as coaches that I don't think these kids are ready to actually do it. And I don't want them to mess up a team that's actually really, you know, at a point where they could do something. Does that make sense? I hope how I'm saying that. We'll cross that bridge as we get closer. So that, because what I don't want is I don't want the kids to not experience it. So I don't want coaches not sending certain kids because they're like, well, that kid, there's no hope for them. Now, you only in theory get to send 3 teams from a school. So that's another drawback to this. So you might only have 3 competitive teams as it is. And so you're already weeded out your recreational ones before you registered, so to speak. And that's a possibility too. Now, we've always said that if space allows, and if you let me know, we'll let you register that 4th team that they kind of cut a while back. I'm just a little bit worried about with COVID, where we will be in January with that. I'm also worried about the space because we have a little less space than we have in the past at the service center. So it's going to depend a little bit on how many invention teams we have sign up, and then how many of the, you know, how many when we have 3 teams signing up. So just be forewarned that right now I'm going to tell you you're only getting 3 teams. Okay. Once I know a little bit better about what our numbers look like, I'll go ahead and open it up. If I open it up to 4 teams, that'll be open to everybody that wants to bring a 4th team. That's not, you know, first come, that's not special treatment, anything else. But by the rules, it's 3 teams that can come. So you're talking 12 kids at max that you're going to be bringing to area contest. And that's why some of these other little practice things like Kelly's done and Jill Hensley's done some of that. Some of those are nice because they use those sometimes as a way to kind of say, all right, these are the teams now that get to go on to area contest. So again, kind of keep that in mind. And yes, Brian, a kid can only be on 1 team. So you can't have a kid on an inventions team and on an arena team. You're only going to get a kid can only participate with 1 team between either contest. This one's different now. So getting back to the contest, it's still, we got 2 teams competing on the same side of the table. We're not competing, working together on the same side of the table. So where we used to do 1 team on each side, so we only had 2 teams at a table, we're going to have 4 teams at a table each round. So even though we're doing more rounds with the tournament bracket and everything, I think time-wise, we're still going to be okay. But we're just going to have to see how this first year goes. And I'm going to be a stickler on the 2 minute that you have between, you know, getting your robot set up and all that kind of stuff. And we'll talk and iron those things out before we go. So Amanda, no, you can have 3 inventions teams and 3 arena teams. Good question. Okay, so you could have a total of 6 teams. Yes, glad you asked that question. That's a good clarification. But so, you know, there's 4 teams. There's 8 kids at the table for each round. On each side of the table, those 2 teams of 2 are working together. So they can talk to each other and will want to talk to each other. The morning of the contest, I won't release it before that. The morning of the contest, we will tell everybody who their connection is. So when they first get there to the site, they're going to want to start figuring out who their partners are going to be for those first 3 rounds. And then once they get up there for that round, there's a 30-second time period, and then there's a 90-second time period. The 30-second time period is autonomous. The robot has to drive itself. So there's not a touch penalty thing or any of that kind of stuff. You got to let it go, and it's going to go do its thing for 30 seconds. At the end of 30 seconds, the clock will stop. The robot will need to be turned off, left, right, where it is at that point. The judges will quickly score the table based on what's there. They get points if they bring the checkers in, and then other things that they do. Because there's checkers that are going along that middle wall that they can bring onto their side. Okay, because they're going to want to have as many pieces as they can to be able to do stuff with. And no, to ask Brian's question, the partner groups will not be they will not necessarily be from the same district. Okay, that's another thing that as we get closer, I'll ask judges if we're okay with 100% random draw on that, or if we want to do random draw but eliminate any school working with each other. So it should just be random at that point, and you don't know who you're working with. But after that 30-second time slot is there, then at that point, the driver can bring the robot back. They've got a 2-minute time period, and that will start as soon as I'll have one of the judges with a stopwatch. And as soon as the scoring has finished, they have 2 minutes to get set up. Now, we can start them quicker than that if both sides are ready, but we won't mess with them. And they've got that 2 minutes to adjust, change their programs, because then they're going to go into remote mode. Okay, the only way they can remote to their thing is through Bluetooth. They can't use Wi-Fi or IR. Okay, so keep that in mind too. But that last 90 seconds is remote driven. So at that point, they can go nuts with whatever they can do that way. That's the new part to it, is we've never had that before. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do with that. But in that 90 seconds, then again, the clock will start. That 90 seconds is done. The robot stops right where it is. And then the scoring is done again based on what's happened at the end of that 90 seconds. So scoring happens 2 times, after 30 seconds and after 90 seconds. Okay. The rule book clearly labels all the different things about the plane and which part is in and which part is out. Your robot has to have a 12 by 12 footprint this year. They're not going height wise though. You can go as high as you want. Okay. I'll clarify that a lot more later, where I say that, look, that 12 by 12, we're not going to sit there and wait for them to shift and change their robot for a long time. They get up to the table, it's going to be a minute, get set up, and we're going, because we got to keep that schedule moving. So you get those things. Now, they're going to run 3 times then. They'll get 3 different random partners. Okay. So if me and Kelly were a team, we're going to go we're onto our side of the table, paired up with some random other twosome. The next time we get paired up with another random twosome and another one. But the scoring counts for both of those. So you could, in theory, have one team sit there and their robot does nothing, and the other robot does all the stuff it's supposed to do. And both of those teams are going to get the same point totals. Okay. So that team that sits there and does nothing still gets what they earn with what their partner earns, so to speak. Obviously, they're going to be more productive if both robots are doing stuff. And I guess I could say that maybe sometimes they'd be more productive if one of them stayed out of the way. But that's a strategy thing that you guys would have to work on, I guess. So after those 3 rounds, the highest point totals are ranked from top to bottom. And if we have more than 36 teams, okay, then we will essentially take the top 50%. And those are the ones that are eligible for the tournament. Okay. When it comes to the tournament, if there's a lot of teams, we're going to have some teams that aren't even eligible to be drawn in for that tournament. For the tournament, there's a total of 8 teams that will be made up of 2 groups. So you're going to have essentially 16 partnerships or 16 teams that make it into that advanced bracket. And at that point, it's a single elimination, winner take all, and they just keep going. So what happens is we rank those top to bottom. And so let's say I'm the first team. Then they're going to be called out. They're going to say, who do you want to pick for your alliance? They can pick from any team. Now you might think, oh, it makes sense for them to pick the second ranked team. Well, it might not. It might make more sense for them to pick the 32nd. Well, 32nd wouldn't work. The 28th team, because they know they match up well with their skill sets on what they can and can't do. So they get to pick anybody that's eligible out of that top 50%. Okay. At that point, if they pick the 4th team, then those 2 teams are partnered up and they're seed number 1. Then the next highest seed, so that's teams, there's seed 2, they step up, they say they want team 3, okay, or seed 3. So 2 and 3 are together now, they're the second seeded team, okay? And those groups then will stay together until they lose or until they become the champion. I hope I'm explaining that kind of well, and I'm hoping the rules made sense on that from what you read. Then the rest of it, when you go through it again, it's points. It's points based on what you get when your robot is stopped after those 30 and 90-second marks. It doesn't matter. They may have something that would score. They might have a widget, that's all touching itself and it's on the right spot. and it's there for the first, 45 to 50 seconds of the run, and then the robot knocks it off, okay, then at that point, none of that matters. It doesn't matter that they had it there once. What matters is where it is at the end of the contest. So that usually can kind of save some grief, I guess, if they know that ahead of time. But here you get in section 1.3, you get your team members, you got your robot driver, safety zone technician. Those are the two that come to the table. And then your network rep or reps, those are the ones that are wandering around. They can actually be up where the contest is going on, and they could be down in the pit area networking there as well. So if you have 4 people, that's how I would do it. You'd have one up in the arena, and then you'd have one down in the pit, kind of working different angles with different teams. Your playing field, just so you know, we're going to have to turn the mats a little bit different this year, but you're going to have to start in the safety zone. Now, your safety zone, your robot has to touch the white space in there. So in some cases, we have it where it breaks the plane. So if there's a cord that breaks the plane of that line, but it specifically says in the starting point that some part of the robot has to touch the mat inside of that. Okay, but they're going to get to angle that and do different things. And it's just got to be able to be in a 12 by 12 box, that footprint of it, when we start it. We're only going to measure that 12 by 12 before the 30-second time slot. Okay. When you start going in here, I like that we finally labeled these things what they are. They're circles and angles, right angle arrows and safe zones and all that. We don't have the beehive and a bunch of random things that we got to remember. Here's the different game pieces. Remember, this fake money is going to be random, and that's going to be random anywhere inside of here. So there's a lot of leeway a lot of randomness, I guess what I'm trying to say, that's going to be to that. So that dollar bill will just be in there. When you get to your game placement, this is what it's going to be set up as. So this is what I was referring to with the checkers. If you haven't looked at that, the team at the beginning, or really any time in the round, can come and bring these over onto their side. So whether they come and just sweep them all over onto theirs, but once they're on a side, they can't be stolen. So if some team came in and swiped all of them over onto their side, then these 2 teams over here would not be able to use those. Okay, so once they hit the mat on either side, then they can't be used by the other side of it. I guess one strategy could be to just go knock them all off the board completely, and then nobody could use them, but you're going to lose out on potential points that way too. So you're trying to get your widgets inside these targets. There's 3 inside the circle and 2 outside the circle. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call there. And then you got to make sure that you don't have any loose parts of a widget inside of here. That'll actually count against you. So keep that in mind as you go through it as well. And like I said, this money here can be totally random. So there's a lot of variation that'll happen. Your bricks will be centered here like you see. Now, anything that the robots bring into the safe zones. So remember, your safe zones are where you're starting. So that's this area and this area. Anything that's brought into that, if your robot is touching the safe zone or any game pieces are brought into that, now that technician can actually touch those and manipulate them, do what they need to, and then get them back in. Okay, but your robot has to set them back into the game somewhere to score. So you can't just have that technician go make a widget and then go set it out on the target. That wouldn't work. They got to put them back with the robot, and then they work from there. Okay. Again, you've got dice in there and other pieces, but the dice are going to be centered up here. And then that plank is going to be centered on this thing here. Just please make sure that your teams know that the board is not going to be the same for every board. There's bows that some of them are going to bow a little bit. Some of them, that middle wall is going to be a little bit higher than it should be. I will just tell you what we have at the service center is the same thing we've always had. And there are variations in all wood and in all products. So make sure your teams are planning things that give them the ability to adjust to the variations of those boards. I'd love to be able to tell you that everything's going to be perfectly set up, but it just isn't. There's going to be a wave somewhere in that board that can manipulate and adjust and mess up your deal. I will get with Chrissy, and I'll probably go out to the service center at some point and change all the deals and get them taped down again so that they're good and flat and they're in the correct orientation. So we're not doing that the day before and we have other issues with that. So just know that we'll work on that as much as we can. Now, when you get into interacting with the elements, again, this is what I was just saying about game elements in the safe zone. Your kids can't touch any elements that are outside of that. Okay. Yes, we have the contest at Region 8, Amanda. The software and everything, like it says here, you can use any programming thing that you want to use for this, as long as it works within what you're doing. But here's the robots that are available to you. So the VEX platform, I said BEST earlier, BEST is not technically, I guess, allowed. I don't know what all the difference is in what they would use. They might be using the same robots, but the VEX IQ Robot Inventor, Spike Prime, Lego EV3. So any of those are the ones that are allowed. Now, if BEST uses something that fits within that, then I'm sure it's fine. I don't know enough about what they use. So I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my head there. The limits to the outside elements for the construction of the robot, they can go nuts with that as long as it's allowed, in one of these things. They can't use glue or tape. That's a big one that will always come up. Okay. If they tape their cables and it's not sticky at all, that's fine, because they want to tape it to put a label on their things because they want to switch those around at some point. That's okay. If there's a little piece of tape that's stuck to the robot to label it, SSES Robot 1, things like that are okay. But it can't be sticky to where you're trying to take an advantage of something to work that way. Okay. Okay, and I see Jody saying the BEST would not be allowed. It's old VEX Cortex with large motors. So I'm going to say again, if you've got questions about anything that's not specifically listed there, make sure you get that communicated in the main community, and I'll talk about where that is here in a minute. But definitely thank you, Jody, for adding that in. Again, your 12 by 12 footprint is listed here, and then your different deployments and attachments. So your kids can get that thing set up. We're going to measure it. Say, yes, it fits in the 12 by 12. Everything they have has to be, able to be on the robot for that measurement. But then they can do what they need to do to get that ready, and then switch parts in and out and stuff. As long as that robot comes back to that safe zone, that's the time when they can touch it. Okay, so even when they're remoting, they'll want to drive it back to the safe zone. Then they can touch and adjust and do what they need to. Softwares and controllers, again, here, this talks about that a little bit. I mean, this has all the information that I know really at this point. So your alliance partnerships, I kind of explained all of that stuff. Your qualification matches are what I was explaining earlier. Your 30-second automated period, and then your 90-second driver controlled period. I talked about those. And then your scoring for each of those goes into that. Okay, your finals rankings, all of that stuff's here. Now, the first place team is the one that gets to advance automatically. So that's going to be the two teams that make up that alliance. So we could have 2 from SSES and then 2 from Paris Chisholm Middle School, I think you said. Those could be an alliance, and those could be the ones that get first place. They're the only ones guaranteed to going on. Okay, it used to be top 2. Now, just because of the layout of the contest, that's partly why. So then after that, you've got your at-large teams that will come from all the other second, third place teams from all the other contests. Okay. This is the tournament that we were talking about here. And then here's the advancement to the state contest that I was just talking about. Okay. When you get to the advance to the state contest, there will be a variation to the rules. So once those teams advance, we'll make sure that you have that information made available to you. And then here you've got your Q&A of the different things. I would suggest TCA makes no money off of the materials. I'll just tell you that they truly make nothing off of that. They don't make much money off of the area contest. I actually make good money on our area contest usually. And that's because we have so many teams. So, the state contest and stuff doesn't make money. It's usually break even or even lose a little bit of money. So if you get the stuff from them, you're guaranteed to have materials that work, that are the right materials and everything else. I order all of our table sets, and they never get touched until competition day. So I order them straight from TCA. So I'm ordering the same stuff you would be ordering if you order that. But you can always go to this list and you can go find these materials very easily, and they're probably going to be just fine. And you may already have a ton of those things available. But if you want to be safe, if you get it from there, you know what's happening with it. But anyway, that's just kind of food for thought. There will be different revisions of this, and You just need to keep up with that stuff as it goes on. Now, let's go back here to the TCA website and let's talk a little bit about the community. So you need to be a TCA member. If you're not yet, then you want to get, your registration paid so that you can do that. It's $49. If you go to the February convention and you're signed up for that, then you're already a member for it. So sometimes you don't have to pay. Or if you go to any other of the events that they have. But under membership on the website, there's the TCA community right here. Okay. And when you click on that, you can enter the community. You're going to have to sign or set up your stuff if you haven't already. A lot of you have been in this before, so you'll know this. But then you come into the community, and this Area 8 community is where I'm posting information. So I updated the information about this meeting here. I sent another notification here about the meeting and that. And then down here, I updated the original post that I made saying that we were going to have the contest on the 13th. I was wrong. That's going to be on the 7th now. So I will put notification in here, and I will email that email group as we have things. The email is where I generally will put things that I just think coaches need. Anything that I want to make sure is public so that, any new coaches that haven't seen it yet could find it. I'll put that in the community because I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. But even better than this, we've got robotics groups. Okay, so over here you see all the different groups that you're in. If you click on view all, you can go down here and you can see that you've got this robotics one and then the robotics contest. This is the official TCA community for updates and information on this contest. It's important that as coaches, you guys get in and look at this. I will tell you, I don't look at it very much until about November, because all I need to know is the chatter that's going on and what the final decisions are on rules and interpretations. So I'll look at it in November. I'll look at it again in late December, and I'll make sure I've read everything that's in there so I know when I'm trying to judge it, what I'm doing. And then I'll look at it really heavily again in January before we get started. But you want to definitely check that out. Peggy Reimers is our official TCA staff person in charge of robotics, and she is amazing. She can answer your questions. She will answer your questions. Darren Wilson is the one that's actually in charge of, he organized the layout of this contest. So these people will be in here and you'll be talking directly to them. And anybody else that has questions will be, chiming in and you have the conversation. So this TCA robotics contest community is a piece that you want to be in for all official communication, broader than what we're doing just with our area contest. Okay. If you have any problems finding that stuff, just let me know and I'll help make sure you can get into that. But you do have to be a TCA member officially to get that. All right. I'm going to stop at that because that's really the main pieces I wanted to address. Like I said, I'm going to try to do another one of these kind of calls here in a few weeks. And then in December, I'll send out my rules interpretation stuff and probably offer up another quick call there for anybody that wants it. And then beyond that, just communicate with us in the community or by email and we should be good. But I'm going to stop and let you guys chime in with any questions you have at this point.